All right, hi everybody. David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, back with another Symphonina Foundation podcast, and a very timely one as we're joined by composer Douglas Knehans today, who is co-director of the Thessaloniki Art Music Summit, with the application due date coming up very quickly on February 1, and we want to make sure that Douglas has the opportunity to share this opportunity with all of you. So I'm going to quickly turn it over to Douglas so he can talk about that, and then we're going to find out a little bit more about him.
Great. Well, thank you, David, for allowing me on the show today. I'd really like to encourage people to apply to this fantastic new opportunity. It's a brand new opportunity. It's our first year, so everyone coming would be inaugural participants. And the idea is to invite composers to come and write music for symphony orchestra, be mentored by senior composers such as myself, and have their work have a public performance and recording after they work with the orchestra during the week and work with composers and refine their piece, and then experience it in performance and have a recording when they go away.
And it's going to be held in Greece then, at Thessaloniki?
Yes, in Thessaloniki, Greece. Yeah.
And when you apply, who should apply? Let's start with that.
It's very broad. We want the broadest range of people possible. There are no limits on age or gender or race or anything like that. Just as long as you're interested in writing orchestral music and have written some and kind of know your way around the orchestra a little bit, that's really all we want.
Okay, and then I presume not everybody who applies might expect to be selected. So what sort of selection criteria do you have in mind when you're looking at different applicants?
Well, we're looking for people who really have a good level of craft. They're not just like hummers, as they say in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But that they really do have some orchestral craft. They know about the instruments, they know how to write for them. And if possible, they've had some orchestral experience before. Sometimes people that are in a degree program in a music school might have had a piece read by their local orchestra there.
Mm-hmm.
The difference here is that, of course, it's a storied professional orchestra with a long history, not only of performance but of recording too. They've recorded for Deutsche Grammophon and Sony, and now with our company Ablaze. So we're really interested in that.
That sounds great. And then as part of the program, would there be a focus on writing things within a, let's say, Greek cultural heritage, or is it open to anything?
Yes. No. Each year we have a theme, and this theme is the theme of this year is Orfeo. So anything about Orfeo or any of the legends around Orfeo would be absolutely fair game.
Sounds great. And where can people go to find more information about that?
So they need to go to www.thamsummit. I'll spell it THAMSUMMIT.com. Okay,
one more time for that. Let's try that one more time.
Okay, it's www.thamsummit. That's THAMSUMMIT.com.
Okay. That sounds great. And of course, if anybody has any questions for you, we'll be giving your contact information at the end of the podcast. They can get in touch with you directly too, I'm sure. I was looking at your background, your CV and everything, and boy, you have a very storied career, Douglas. You started early and you've been very busy, and all the way through doctoral program at Yale University. And how did you get into music in the first place?
It's really interesting. I was not actually an early starter. I was a late starter. I was in my last year of high school and decided that I wanted to take up an instrument. And so I took up flute and music theory and music history at that point, and worked pretty hard and got into a music school the next year, where I had to work even harder because I was just a little bit behind.
Yeah.
Then graduated with that. And after I graduated, worked for 5 or 6 years as a freelance composer in Melbourne, Australia.
Okay. Where my mom was born, I might add.
Oh, really? Oh,
yes.
That's great. Yeah, Melbourne's a great town, man. Yeah. So then I decided I needed to get a higher degree, like a master's degree or so. So I got a scholarship to Queen's College in New York and went there to study with Thea Musgrave, a fantastic Scottish composer who's very, very well known now. And then after that, went on to Yale to do my doctorate, where I studied with Jacob Druckmann, who unfortunately has passed now, but was a fantastic teacher. So I've had really, really great luck with my education.
Yeah, now when you're 16, 17, 18, however old you were, it's behind the curve a bit. So I'm guessing you especially, and starting on flute, I would imagine learning all the music theory when you're playing one note at a time, so to speak, on the flute is probably its own challenge. Did you in retrospect, would you say that you are happy you started with the flute, or would you rather start maybe with piano? But obviously it didn't hurt you in the end.
Yeah, I think piano would have been better, but I didn't have the, I think, time to really develop, as a pianist if I wanted to like move into music school.
Okay.
So I made very rapid progress on the flute, and then of course in music school they did teach piano, but I don't think I would put myself up against professional pianists by any means.
Well, you don't have to. It's fine. That's why they're professional pianists. In my own things that I started playing piano when I was 5, so I do have a long time on the piano. But many other distractions in life, and we're blessed in this Grammy world of independent artists to know many great pianists, and I have been very happy to sign off on the piano parts to other people, and then occasionally play them myself too. But it's one of the nice things where you get to compose something and then listen to someone else bring out everything that they can from it. So I think there's a lot of joy just in that. I suppose you probably do too.
Yeah, I do, and I've just we just recorded last summer my first piano concerto with Vivian Fang Lu. Do you know Vivian?
Yeah, Vivian played on my Symphonina 4 for this last year.
Yeah,
so,
she's just great. And so we went to Brno and recorded that with the Brno Philharmonic, and we had a great time. The recording sounds amazing too. It's beautiful.
Great. So what are you working on for this year, 2026 now?
Just finished a big recording session in Glasgow with the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. There we recorded my second cello concerto called Dark City, and that was with Grammy winner Zool Bailey, who was the soloist.
Okay.
For a big orchestra, it's a really interesting piece. There's a solo cello, but then a little concertino kind of behind the soloist, which is cymbalom and prepared piano and harp. Then the normal symphony orchestra, and there's an offstage soprano also. So it's kind of a rangy piece, but a really interesting piece, very very emotional and very atmospheric. I'm really proud of it.
And when would we expect to be able to hear that?
Yeah, we're working on post right now, so I'm hoping that maybe by March, April, it'll be out.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. We'll not have to wait too long at all for that. That's great.
Yeah.
I was looking on your CV that you've been chair of composition at University of Alabama School of Music. You've also been professor of music and director at the University of Tasmania Conservatorium of Music. And I'm curious if you think there's any difference, or have you noticed any difference in your time between American Music College and Australian Music College, or any other foreign place. What your experience has been for those differences? Are there differences from the student's perspective? And maybe if someone's interested in pursuing composition, let's say at an orchestral composition degree, if they could weigh those choices between an American school or different American schools and foreign schools, what you might have to say about that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, David. I think the interesting thing about American schools is they're very technocratic in the way that they teach most things. So it's always about technique. It's always about let's understand, let's analyze, let's get our brains around this thing. My experience in Europe is that they get there via different routes. So it's always through the expression in the music itself that leads to questions that engage the analytical part. So it's really approaching music from two distinctly different pathways, but they both join up in the end, but
right.
It's the starting point, I think, in America is much more kind of analytic, and I do really like that, and it's a good way to engage students and teach them craft and technique, and I'm kind of predisposed to that a little bit myself.
Interesting. Okay. All right. And so for students who are coming up, let's say that they didn't start quite as late as you, would you have them focus more on traditional Western music theory then as part of the practice for their instrument at the same time? Or would you say it would be better for them to get the level of proficiency first, playing other people's music before they start thinking about how is it constructed and then how can I construct it as well?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I mean, I think that it's pretty individual, everyone's pathway into music, some people, like when I learned theory, I just took to it. It wasn't ever a question for me. It all made total sense, and I didn't have to kind of ponder over any of it. But I know for a lot of other people, it can be, really taxing, and really they just don't get it. I think with other cultures, we need to really open out our educational institutions to embrace the music of other cultures, so that we really understand all of this on a level playing field. I mean, Western music is only one part of music of the world, and
Sure.
And it's a really interesting part, don't get me wrong, but I think there are other really interesting parts of the world with deep cultural traditions that we need to respect and try and understand more.
Right. And then also, I guess it takes a little bit of leap of faith to be able to write in those other cultures.
Well, that becomes a little tricky too, because I think if you're not of that culture, there's an up and a downside of that.
Yes, exactly.
The downside is that you only really can ever have a kind of superficial understanding of it a little bit. But the upside of it is that kind of ignorance can lead to some really novel and interesting new approaches that maybe people within the culture wouldn't have thought of as readily.
Yeah, or blending between the two, of course.
Right. Yeah, and that's always really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're focused on writing a piano concerto or a cello concerto, do you think ahead of time about the sort of structure that you want in the music, or do you just start composing and let the compositional process unfold as you go?
I always think of structure first. So for me, I've got a pretty orderly way of going about it. The first thing I think of is, what is the piece about? Mm-hmm. And then what's going to be the vessel that's going to hold that? And then I work out the kind of form of it. And then I work out the musical ideas that are going to be embedded in that form, and then I just kind of go from there, because I've got kind of the foreground material, a background structure, and it kind of facilitates moving pretty fast, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you find that you write for a standard orchestra set, or do you find that as you're going along you start bringing in, let's say, instruments that are outside of the standard orchestra set? Like, I could make an example of, let's say, an alto saxophone, or I would say a bass clarinet's outside the set, but it's not a typical instrument that you'd find. So there's degrees of being outside, right? But
yeah, there is.
Yeah.
I think with the symphony orchestra, with the Western Symphony Orchestra, I think when you bring in outside instruments, it can cause just a little bit of a challenge, especially in recording, but even in performance, about where to place that instrument so that it can kind of be heard. Mm-hmm. I've written a lot for cymbalom, and I know John Adams has too. And the cymbalom's always placed really forward, because it's a pretty loud instrument, but not that loud. It's not as loud as a piano, for example. So to have it project, it's got to be kind of forward in the orchestra. And if you don't know that to start with, you'd be kind of experimenting around with where to place it and so on. Other instruments have tuning issues, like saxophone in particular can kind of be a little bit squirrely in terms of blending with the other woodwinds, mm-hmm. Both in terms it's a more powerful instrument than the other woodwinds, but also sometimes the pitching cannot be as exact as people that are sitting beside each other every day of the year, right?
Yeah.
So there's those kind of challenges that come into, and if you start to detune the strings of a string section and so on like that. I think you have to be prepared to understand it's going to take more time for the orchestra to adjust to that. Yeah,
and I guess also this is just intuition to me and common sense, but common sense can be wrong. I would say the more unusual the setup, probably the less likely an orchestra is to play it, because they have other things to choose that are
that's true. That's true, and it can extend to even something as simple as a harp. If there's a middle grade orchestra and they have to hire in a harpist, it has impacts on the budget, and so they'll say, forget it, we're going to do Tchaikovsky Symphony instead. Right.
Yeah, very practical, right? So yeah. I think that. What do you think the biggest challenges for music right now, and any part of music, as we look at this year and the years to come? What do you think it is?
Wow, that's a big, broad question. I think AI is certainly in there as part of that. As part of the challenge. I think the development of institutions, like how symphony orchestras are faring, how chamber ensembles are faring, just as an institution financially.
Yep.
Are they going to stay viable? Are they going to reach new audiences? These are all really vexing questions that I think require a new level of creativity and leadership in the people that lead those institutions.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And as you know, at the Symphonina Foundation, we're all about spreading the joy of symphonic music to young audiences around the world, particularly in the Symphonina format of short symphonies that are hopefully more accessible to younger audiences and may help them appreciate the music and then want to go to the symphony and help support their local symphony orchestra for the future. Yes. So right there with you on that one. Yeah.
That's great what you're doing too.
I appreciate that, Douglas. Okay, so we're going to be looking forward for your cello concerto coming out March, you said? March or April?
I think March or April, yeah.
Okay. All right. And is there a title to it? Is it your first one? Forgive my ignorance on that.
No, it's my second cello concerto.
Okay.
And it's called Dark City.
Dark City. And how many movements is it?
It's in 5 movements.
Okay.
Well, really 4 for orchestra, and then there's a long cadenza in it as well.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Douglas, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Probably by email. They can contact me at douglas@douglasknehans.com, and I'll be able to talk with them that way.
I think it'll work. You should be able to get in touch with you just as I did. That's great. I wish you all the best for your album and also for the Thessaloniki Art and Music Summit that's coming right up. Again, if you want to get on that, the deadline was February 1st. And as we talked about it earlier, you can listen and look at the website, get all the information. If you have any other questions, I'm sure Douglas will be more than happy to help. We're going to listen to some more of Douglas's great music on the way out here. And if there's anything I can do or the Symphonina Foundation can do to be of help to you, Douglas, you just let us know.
Would love that. Thank you, David.